Hi guys, it's your boy Pavi with an emergency podcast this evening. What a day it's been for tennis. I think it's one of the biggest news stories that has ever hit tennis off the court, certainly with the news today that the PTPA, the Players Tennis Professional Association, are going to send legal actions to the ATP, the ITIA, the WTA, and also to the ITF, who of course govern the 4 Grand Slams. So really big news. I'm obviously very excited. For those who don't know me, kind of historically, I've been kind of running a tennis club, an LTA affiliated tennis club for about 15 years now. And, even way before, kind of almost before Djokovic came into prominence, I was always very passionate about tennis and what was happening off court, and for it to be a level playing field on and off court. And my experiences were derived from speaking to a lot of players. So, I was privy to a lot of lower ranked players that sometimes would come and practice at the club. So we would speak to them and get an insight into what really happens. So, this has always been a big passion for me. A lot of people will say, oh, you're a Djokovic fan and you'll do whatever is in Djokovic's interests. I mean, the fact that Djokovic is, was part of the founders of the PTPA is amazing. But one of the reasons that I supported Djokovic in the first place was his stance to always support the people, the players, whoever, whatever ranking they are. He's never really been a corporate or what I would say is an establishment kind of guy. He's always been one that's been pushing for the betterment of all players, regardless of their age, their ranking, their ability. They're all players. And this falls in line with Djokovic's own ethos. He's said many times that he's a philanthropist, and he actually puts that as a more important objective to him than tennis, to help those that really need it. So, my kind of visions and my kind of hopes and aspirations for the games aligned with Djokovic. But, these were shaped for me very much before I even really started following Djokovic and watching Djokovic. These stemmed from, from a long time ago. So it's a very important day for me today, because in the last probably 10-20 years, and I think it's been getting progressively worse, I've been saying that I believe that tennis is being run in a corrupt manner, that it's systemically corrupt, and it benefits certain players who I will call establishment players. Establishments, of course, are the big businesses. And today, finally, after years of kind of being almost like an activist really on tennis, Twitter or on X, on my social media platforms, to try and get someone to finally take tennis to court is happening today. So it's a big day for me today, and very excited about what the future holds after the developments today. So we're going to go straight into the lawsuit. Now I've got the initial, I've got the 100-page plus report in front of me here, but I want to kind of just talk about the summary in terms of what the PTPA are doing. So in the legal paper that's been issued to the relevant bodies and the relevant courts across the world, the introduction states the following: professional tennis players are stuck in a rigged game. That's the first sentence. That's very powerful. Not on the court, where fierce competition between players delights millions of fans worldwide, but off it, where players are forced to endure grueling schedules, capped earnings, abusive and invasive investigations and discipline. So I think they're referring to possibly the double standards there and what we're seeing from the ITIA, and of course they're one of the bodies that are being taken to court here. And have limited control over their own careers and brands. This is because a cartel of tour organisations and tournament operators have conspired to avoid competition amongst themselves and to shut out outside tournaments, affording them complete control over players' pay and working conditions. These horizontal and vertical agreements are textbook violations of state and federal law. They immunise professional tennis from ordinary market forces and deny professional tennis players and other industry participants their right for a fair competition. This lawsuit will seek to remedy all of these harms. So that is quite a powerful statement that the PTPA have issued there, that really kind of goes into detail in terms of what they're hoping to do. And they're not messing about here. They've got James Quinn, who is a senior attorney lawyer from the US, who has represented the NBA, the NFL. You know, he's kind of, he knows what he's doing here. He's a very, very experienced sports lawyer. He's picked this case up with his legal firm, and he's kind of was almost shocked at kind of the conditions that the players were having to face, and maybe some of the favoritism that some of the players are facing here as well. So, you know, the action is very, very real. For those who say, well, these are independent contractors and organisations, you know, can do what they want, that is false. You know, the law is on the side. All organisations have to provide a fair and equal environment for all independent contractors. It's written in the law. And you know, when the PTPA first set up in 2020, it could have kind of gone two ways. It could have looked at doing changes if the organisations wouldn't listen to them, by either doing a strike or by issuing legal action. And they've done that. So some of you will say, well, why has it taken 5 years for them to do this today? And you know, I was privy to this information before it went public, but I wasn't aware of when it was going to be made public. So the fact that it was done today, I think, is brilliant. And you know, it's done on today, on March the 18th, 2025. Now, those of you who follow me on social media know I'm very, very passionate about talking about the ITIA number of errors that I believe they made when they were assessing not only Jannik Sinner's case, but also Igor Swiatek's cases, who both failed drug tests. And I felt that they were treated preferably in comparison to kind of other players. So today's March the 18th, 2025. You know, the symbolicness of that is on March the 18th, 2024, Jannik Sinner failed his second drugs test in Miami and was still allowed to play in that tournament. He didn't have any of his ranking points or prize money deducted, and the ITIA believed the story that was provided, and therefore it was kept private for over 5 months before it finally became public knowledge, possibly due to a whistleblower, who knows. But that is just one of the areas that probably broke the straw that broke the camel's back. Because, you know, if we focus on the reasons of why the PTPA are bringing this action, and we'll start off with the ITIA and their kind of the way that they've assessed the whole Jannik Sinner case. You know, you look at Jannik Sinner in terms of how he's been treated in comparison to people who have been in similar scenarios. You know, Marco Battaglino was an Italian lower rank player who also had clostebol in his system, a very, very small amount. Half of that report's been redacted from the ITIA, so there's obviously something in there that they don't want us to see. But the essence of that case was that he also had a very, very small amount of clostebol in his system. This was in November 2023, just 5 months before Jannik Sinner. Now, the difference between Battaglino and the Sinner case was that Battaglino, ironically enough, provided the very same excuse. He said that, you know, he wasn't aware of how it got into systems, and it was done via a physio massage. So exactly the same excuse used by Jannik Sinner and his team, except this time the ITIA didn't believe him because the physio was not willing to testify in a hearing, whereas Jannik Sinner, who has got Giacomo Naldi on his payroll, so you know he is an employee essentially of Jannik Sinner. Jannik Sinner is his boss. Was happy to kind of go along with the story or say that this has actually happened. We don't know the truth. We don't really know what's happened here, but they've gone with that story, and he's able to tell to the ITA, yeah, this is what happened. In the Battaglino case, the physio was not Battaglino. So he wasn't an employer, and they didn't feel that they wanted to get involved in a court case and spend time and effort. Probably won't even get reimbursed for it. And it's not a criminal case where, you've got to be forced to come and speak. So that never happened. And then the ITIA basically said, on the basis of the information that they've seen, we're going to ban you for 4 years. Now, a 4-year ban is basically when you intentionally dope. So they didn't believe Battaglino's story at all and thought that he was just coming up with a story. But Jannik Sinner, 3 months later, provides almost an identical story, and they decide to believe his story, and they come up with various rules to say, we didn't need to make it public because we believe the story. And yeah, it took over 5 months. And if you look at that investigation, how quickly it was done, the report that was made by Jannik Sinner's legal team was sent to the ITA on the same day that they found out that he had failed the test, and they'd provided explanations. Now, I've read that it was approved by the ITA on the same day. So they've got someone in front of them on the panel and said, we believe it. And there you go, off you go. So, the drug case is quite an important case for me. And then what transpires was that, WADA then thought, we're disagreeing with the ITA. And WADA, for the very first time, disagreed with the ITA and said, well, look, we're appealing to the Court of Arbitration of Sport. And we believe that Jannik Sinner has committed 2 anti-doping violations, and we are pushing for a ban for 1 to 2 years. We all then thought it was going to go to the Court of Arbitration of Sport. Court of Arbitration of Sport look at the information that WADA provided them and said, yes, we believe you've got a case. They then put in a date in the diary for April the 16th, which was going to be coming up in a few weeks. Jannik Sinner and his team, regardless of whatever's said, if someone's taking you to court, you're not the ones that are gonna then, WADA are taking Jannik Sinner to court. They didn't have to, but they decided that they were. Now, Jannik Sinner's team are telling us that WADA picked up the phone to them and said, oh, can we do a deal? Doesn't make sense if someone is taking you to court, because he wouldn't have taken to court in the first place. But if we run with that story, that was going to happen. But his and his team, conveniently, just after Australian Open finished, they decided that he was going to be banned for 3 months, which was the longest period in the whole calendar year between slams. And he was actually going to return at Rome, which is his big home masters. And it just happened that his ban conveniently finishes before Rome. Now, you look at the precedent that's set with other players. You look at Beatrice Haddad-Maia, she was banned for 11 months for a very, very small amount of contamination. You look at Nicholas Jarry. You look at Tara Moore, for 18 months she was suspended. This is someone that was proven that she didn't intentionally take it, but then she couldn't get her case heard. She was suspended straight away. You look at Max Purcell. He won the US Open like Jannik Sinner, but on doubles, he had a little bit of an extra vitamin or something when he was poorly in an IV drip. But he went over the recommended amount, and he failed the drugs test, and he voluntarily suspended until they do their investigation. He decided to, he wasn't going to challenge it, and he missed the Australian Open, his home slam, after he'd just won the US Open. So, you look at all these precedents that are being set. Obviously, Simona Halep is one of the most high-profile ones, where she was also out for 18 months, and it was proven by the Court of Arbitration of Sport that she actually didn't intentionally dope. So you've got all of these kind of other cases, and a lot of the players are getting furious here and saying, why is Jannik Sinner and Igor Swiatek? Igor Swiatek managed to negotiate a ban in installments. So she gets banned for just 1 month, and they somehow decided to give her 2 weeks off where she could play the finals of the Billie Jean Cup and also the World Tour finals for the WTA. So, and then she did 2 weeks of her ban in the off season. That doesn't make any sense at all. And a lot of the players were getting frustrated, and all this was going on. But it's not just the drugs cases. It goes down to scheduling. It goes down to players' welfare. It goes down to benefits. It goes down to money. Tennis, we've been lucky that we've had the golden era. You know, the big three, you know, Federer, Djokovic, Nadal have really taken the game to levels that it's never been before. It's attracted record-breaking billions of sponsorship, TV ratings. Huge companies want to be part of this era, and they have been for 20 years, and the industry is awash with money. But yet you look at how much money players earn. Outside of the top 100, players are struggling to break even. Once they pay their bills, they pay their coaches, they pay their travel expenses, they pay their accommodation, they're barely coming out with anything. And that can't be right. It just can't be right. It means that some of that money is being, it's not being redistributed properly. It's probably top heavy, so more of it's probably going to the top players. And a lot of it is probably being kept by the organisations. You know, we don't know, because the ATP will not expose or be transparent with where all that money goes. Now, I'll go back to the PTPA in terms of why they're doing this action now and why they didn't do it before. So, you know, Ahmed Nasser has been in the role now as the CEO for 2.5, 3 years. You know, he's kind of part of the team that has made this organisation professional. So when it was initially set up by Djokovic, Novak Djokovic and Vasek Pospisil in 2020, it was in its early days. And in that time, they've managed to attract investors. They've managed to recruit a CEO. They've managed to get a board together, you know, a very, very diverse board with players from all kind of backgrounds and sexes, you know, male, female, black, white, you know, all kind of very, very diverse. They've been brought into the association, and they've spoken to the tennis, and they've said, look, we want to work with you. You know, we're not here to disrupt tennis. We're here to try and save tennis, to make tennis better for all the players, not just the chosen few. We just want transparency. We want players to have more rights and says. You know, we heard Nick Kyrgios say today that in the last few years, the tennis balls are changing constantly. The players don't have a say in that. And as a result, a lot of the players are saying they're getting injuries of this. We're seeing surface changes. Players are not having any say in that. We're seeing some matches that are being played for certain players 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock at night. You know, Zverev famously in Acapulco was playing at 4 a.m. in the morning the other year. Djokovic, when he got injured, was playing at 3 a.m. in the French Open. Which sport does this to players? And especially to such a physical sport like tennis. But the players didn't have a say in all of this. It's all the organisations, you know, the ATP, the ITF, they kind of run everything, and they haven't been running it properly. You know, they've been looking after the people that I believe they've invested the most money into, the ones that generate the most sponsorships. You know, who does, you know, Nike are very, very powerful in tennis. They sponsor certain players and give a lot of players. And so ATP may feel inclined to support them as opposed to other players that aren't sponsored by ATP. And that shouldn't be how it works. You know, these are players that are, you know, it's a very, very lonely sport. It's a one-to-one sport. You know, a lot of the players, a lot of the lower ranked players sometimes travel alone. They don't even have coaches, or, you know, they can't pay for coaches to come and travel with them. So, you know, it's a very, very lonely sport, and there's no other sport that is high profile as tennis. I think it's the 4th most popular sport in the world that doesn't have a players' association. So, you know, in that time when the PTPA have been set up in the last 4 or 5 years, they've decided to make it into a professional association. They've shown the players that they really care. You know, they've done various initiatives to help the players, however small it may be. It shows that their heart's in the right place. You know, they've organised bona fide legal fees now for players that are struggling in cases that may be against the ITIA. You know, we know, you know, obviously some players have been involved in that, and they haven't had the funds to be able to get such a legal team like Jannik Sinner did. So they are helping. They're getting the trust of players. And this year, with all that's gone on, they've got to a stage where they've got over 300 players from the ATP and the WTA that say, yes, Ahmed, yes, Vasek, yes, Novak, we are behind you. We want you to go ahead and push with this legal action. Now, what will this legal action hope to do? It will hope to bring these organisations to the table to say, yes, we need to chat. They're not going to give all their power away. It's going to be compromised. But the PTPA need to be part of that decision-making process. They need to be part of the conversation. They are representing the players. They have now got players under their wings. Now, we heard Vasek Pospisil say that, 12 of them named on the plaintiff, 12 players, including Nick Kyrgios, Riley Opelka, Vasek Pospisil. But then they're doing it on behalf of all of the players. So it's not just the 12. And he says some players are a little bit nervous, understandably. This is the fear that they have, that they're kind of working in some sort of kind of cabal and mafia organisation, and they don't have a say, so that that they understandably have their concerns. But the support is there, and there's some top players there. I've spoken to Ahmed at length, and I was a few months ago I kind of sent out a message, a tweet to say, look, now is the time for PTPA to kind of move forward. And I spoke to Ahmed at great depth, and he kind of said, he explained that, that what they've tried to do is to try and speak to all of the organisations, the ATP, the WTA, all of these organisations, to say, look, we want to work with you, not against you. And they kind of exhausted all of those lines of communications. And I know how frustrating that is. I'm a one-man band, but I've, written letters to the MPs to say, how can these big organisations in tennis, the LTA that run tennis, have millions and millions of money that comes into these organisations, and they say they're not for profit, but then we can't get to see where all the information, all that information relating to money goes to. Where it's being used. Why is it not being redistributed to the whole players? You look at golf, and golf's, if you're top 500 in the world, you're making a very, very handsome living. But you look in tennis, and you could be top 200 in the world, and you're barely breaking even. So that just shows that there's something majorly wrong in tennis, especially after we're coming off the golden era, where tennis has never been more popular with the big three, and if you can add Murray and Marienko and Del Potro, and some huge players with big fan bases that really kind of captivated the tennis market, and it generated record-breaking amounts of money, which should have been filtered throughout all of the players, so that all of these players who are even lower ranked were making a good living from the sport that they put too much into. So that's kind of where we're at the moment. It's kind of rocked the boat. This is hopefully gonna bring them to the table. If they don't, then the legal actions are there. As Bill Ackman said, the law is on the side of the PTPA. He's obviously been brought onto the team by Djokovic, and he said he was shocked at the levels of unfairness really in the sport, and so he's kind of putting his support behind it as well, which is really, really good. And there's some really, really top players in the PTPA that are going to push this forward as well. So I'm naturally delighted. As I said, there's so many things in tennis, whether it be benefits, whether it be the ITIA, whether it be balls, surfaces, draws. It's kind of clouded in secrecy, and you either have a player that's going to be on the side of the establishment, the organisations, or you're going to have players that are fighting for everyone, not just for their own selves. You've got a few players that would just look out for themselves. You look at the legacy that Roger Federer's. His pension pot is the Laver Cup. That's a nice earning for him. It's a nice little tournament. He managed to get prime calendar in the ATP schedule as well, rather conveniently, which again the players should have been involved in, and they weren't. And then you look at Djokovic, he set up the PTPA not because of money, not he's had an amazing career, he's completed tennis, he's made more money than he could ever have wanted to, but he's doing this for the betterment of all the other players, for the players that look up to him, to try and help them when they need it the most. So huge credit to him, and to Vasek, and to Ahmed, and to all the players that have signed up. This is a big day for tennis. and it's a historic day for tennis. And it's going to be interesting how kind of some of the establishment shills react, because I believe that the ATP also kind of give accreditations and media work to people that will help push their narratives and messagings. So, Andy Roddick, your Mark Petchys, your Martina Navratilovas, your John Wertheims, all these, your Brad Gilberts, the same sort of people that always push the same sort of messaging. And they're there kind of getting all the media opportunities. Chris Eubanks, a new one who's come in, Andrea Petkovic, they're all kind of coming in and they're all pushing the same sort of agenda. So how are they going to react to this? They're probably going to be against it. We've already seen Andy Roddick's horrific interview really with the PTPA, where he was almost kind of mocking them for trying to do something that he ironically had advocated as a player 20 years ago. And now, because Djokovic is involved and Roddick has got a thing with Djokovic, but he's an establishment man. Djokovic is someone who fights for the people. He's a union man. He always has been. And that's where the clash is. Djokovic is not a yes man. That's what's a big problem for the establishment, because they like yes men. They're like people that will listen to their messages and push them out. So it's going to be interesting how the media react to this now that it's all in the scrutiny. Even with Laura Robson, when she was interviewing Nick Kyrgios for Sky, I always felt that she was quite condescending towards him. Have a look at the interview. It's on my X. But I felt some of her questioning was condescending. You would think media would say, finally, tennis is going to be a level playing field on and off court, but some people are not going to like that. And this isn't going to be easy. This is like a war. Ahmed and all of the PTPA have tried to play ball. They've tried to have these conversations. They didn't want to do this. It was almost a last case scenario. So, it's not going to be easy, but it's the first step. It's the first step to try and bring tennis back. Its integrity, its morals, its principles. And those are the most important things that matter to me. A lot of people say, I'm obsessed with Djokovic and everything that I do is for his betterment. It's not. It's for the betterment of the sport. Yes, I love Djokovic, but a lot of that love is because he's got the same values with regards to this. Tennis has given me huge amounts, on and off the court. It's given, it's built up my whole life, and all my family have been involved in tennis. I've been involved in it. My youngest daughter is now involved in tennis. It's going to be part of my life, for forever, however long that may be. But it's already been a part of mine for 20 years. And for me, there's nothing more important than having a sport that is has integrity, principles, and morals, and is run fairly for everyone, not just the top players, every single one, regardless of your ranking, regardless of who you are. It should be equal and a level playing for all. So, as I said, it's fresh today. The news just broke a few hours ago. I've still not really read up on, I've certainly not read up on the 100-page report yet. I've skimmed through it, but I'm going to have a look through that in more detail, and we'll see what develops over the next weeks or months. And it's a step in the right direction. So, it's exciting times for tennis off the court. So we've seen everything that's happened in the last year, in the last kind of 10, 20 years. It's not just been the last year. There's been a lot of things that have happened that have just not been right. And I've got a lot of information that, I can provide that may help with these legal cases, that I can prove that there's things that are happening in tennis that shouldn't be happening. And all that I want is for that to be exposed, for the bad guys to move away from tennis and let tennis be a sport, like it was, a fun sport, a hard sport, but a fair sport. And that's all that I really, really want. So there you go. I don't know how long I've got on for today, but it was an important day, and just really wanted to say huge congratulations to Ahmed and the PTPA and all the players that are supporting this. You're going to get the usual suspects that are going to try and go against you every time. But I do think that people are starting to really wake up. I get a feel of that. I've got a big tennis community where I'm from, and I speak to a lot of tennis people and a lot of people that would previously disagree with me on a lot of things are suddenly beginning to say, actually, it looks as though you were actually right and we were wrong. And you know, I think the landscape is changing. People are waking up, and that can only be a good thing for tennis. So, so yeah, on that note, wishing all of you well, whoever you support. This has got to be a good thing for tennis. Most importantly, it's the good thing for players. You know, we want a level playing field, and we want to continue enjoying watching tennis, and you know, for future generations to come. So take care, peace out, and I will be back no doubt with another video soon. Take care, bye.